Hello everyone, my name is Khushi Jain and today I am going to share with you a presentation on the topic Introduction to JavaScript. So these are the contents that we are going to go through in this presentation. Firstly, talking about what is JavaScript. So JavaScript is a cross-platform object-oriented scripting language that is used to make web pages interactive. Example, having complex animations, clickable buttons, navigation bars, pop-up menus, etc. There are also more advanced server-side versions of JavaScript such as Node.js which allow you to add more functionality to a website. In short, we can say JavaScript is one of the most important languages of the web. You can use JavaScript in front-end as well as back-end. Some front-end frameworks include React.js and back-end frameworks include Node.js and Express.js. So getting started. To get started with JavaScript, all you need is a modern web browser. You can use any web browser like Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Safari or Google Chrome. A very useful tool for exploring JavaScript is the JavaScript console, which is also known as the web console or console only. This is a tool which enables you to enter JavaScript and run it in the current page. So you can access this console from your web browser itself. JavaScript is case sensitive and uses the Unicode character set. In JavaScript, instructions are called statements and are separated by semicolons. Or we can say the end of every statement is marked by a semicolon. Next is variables. You can use variables as symbolic names for values in your application. Like any other programming language, variables are containers that store some value in them. Similarly, in JavaScript also, the variable stores values. The names of variables, called identifiers, conform to certain rules. A JavaScript identifier usually starts with a letter, underscore or a dollar sign. Subsequent characters can also be digits and any other character mentioned above. Now talking about variable declaration. So there are three kinds of variable declarations in JavaScript. First is using the var keyword. The var keyword declares a variable, optionally initializing it to a value. So you don't need to define a data type like we do in some programming languages. Like in C and C++, we have to define the data type like int or float. But in JavaScript, you don't need to. You just write the var keyword and the name of the variable, and then you optionally initialize it to a value. Next is let keyword. So the let keyword declares a block scoped local variable, optionally initializing it to a value. Next is constant. Const declares a block scoped read only named constant. So this constant is read only. It cannot be changed once it is initialized. Next, talking about data types. The latest ECMAScript standard defines 8 data types. So 7 of them are primitive and the 8th one is object data type. Talking about the 7 primitive data types, they are Boolean. Boolean means true or false. Null. Null is a special keyword denoting absence of a value or a null value. Next, undefined. It is a top level property whose value is not defined. Number. It is an integer or floating point number. For example, we have these 42, 3.14 or any other integer or floating point number. Big int. It is an integer with arbitrary precision. String is a sequence of characters that represent a text value. And lastly, it is symbol, a data type whose instances are unique and immutable. Next, talking about JavaScript display possibilities. So there are 3 ways in which you can display your data using JavaScript. The first is using document.write. So as you can see, this is the syntax for it. For testing purposes, it is convenient to use document.write. In the body tag, we use the script tag to define JavaScript. So these are the script tag in which we are going to write our JavaScript. So here we have written document.write, then parentheses, and the content that you need to display on your web page. So whatever content you define over here is displayed. For example, over here 5 plus 6, so 11 will be displayed on your web page. Next method is using window.alert. This is a method where you can use an alert box to display data. So this is the syntax. In the script tags we have written window.alert. So you will see a alert box which comes onto your web page when you load it, and you see the content in that alert box. Next is using console.log. For debugging purposes, you can call the console.log method in the browser to display data. So using this method, you only see your output in the console, not on the web page. So this is the syntax: script tags and then console.log. Next is conditional statements. A conditional statement is a set of commands that execute if a specified condition is true. JavaScript supports two conditional statements, if else and switch. So it's similar to other programming languages only. Let's see the syntax. If else statement, it is used when we have some condition to execute. So if the statement use the if statement to execute a statement if a logical condition is true, and if the condition is false, we execute the else statement. So this is the syntax as shown: if condition, then statements for when condition is true, and then we have else. So when the statement becomes false, we execute the condition, we execute the statements for the else block. Next is switch statement. A switch statement allows a program to evaluate an expression and attempt to match the expression's value to a case label. If a match is found, the program executes the associated statement. Switch statement is a very simple syntax. As you can see, you use the expression inside this parenthesis. For example, you define a number which is between 1 to 5. Now we have different case labels. If the number is 1, so we use case, then instead of label 1 we'll write 1. So case 1, statement 1. So if the number is 1, you execute statement 1 and then break from the switch statement. If the number is 2, we execute statement 2 and then break, and so on. If the statement is neither of them, like not between 1 to 5, then we have this default case over here. This is used when your expression does not find any match from the case labels. So this is the default, and in that we execute the default statements. Next, talking about loops. There are many different kinds of loops, but they all essentially do the same thing. They repeat an action some number of times. The statement for loops, like we have three types of loop: for loop, while loop and do while loop. When we use loop when we need to iterate. We need to execute a statement or repeat an action a number of times. Firstly, a for loop repeats until a specified condition evaluates to false. Or we can say a for loop is mostly used when you know the number of iterations you are going to make. So beforehand, if I know the number of iterations, then I use for loop. This is the syntax. First we do the initialization of our control variable, then we have the condition and the afterthought. Here we can have increment or decrement or any other condition or any other step, and then we execute the statement. Next is while loop. A while statement executes its statements as long as specified condition evaluates to true. So here we have a while statement. You can see the syntax. And lastly, we have a do while statement, which repeats until a specified condition evaluates to false. The only difference we can see between while and do while loop is this part. So the do while loop has one exception, that it always executes once before the condition is checked. So even if the condition is already false, then also the statement will execute once because of the do statement. But in while statement, we do not execute until and unless the condition is true, not even once. That is where the difference comes between these two. Next, functions. Functions are one of the most fundamental building blocks in JavaScript. A function in JavaScript is similar to a procedure, a set of statements that perform a task or calculates a value. So, in short, I can say a function is a block of statements or a set of statements that are used to perform a specific task or predefined task. A JavaScript function is executed when something invokes it or that is calls it. So this is the syntax for a function. We have the keyword function, then we have the name and we have the parameters. Inside the curly braces we write the code to be executed. This is the function body. Now taking an example. For example, I have a function my function. Now this my function takes two parameters a and b and returns their product a into b. Now how should I call it? So in this example we have called it using a variable. We defined a variable x which calls my function. So the value returned by my function is stored in this variable x. So the value stored in x will be 4 into 3, that is 12. I hope you liked the presentation. Summarizing it, JavaScript is a wonderful technology to use on the web. It is not hard to learn, it is very versatile, although it's sometimes tricky. There are many methods and there are many applications which JavaScript has. It plays nicely with other web technologies such as HTML and CSS. Thank you.